fancy a snack. Well, I'll fancy a snack later with some beer. And, well, I've got my usual snacks, but I want to make something a bit different. I'm going to make a Nigerian treat, if you like. We're going to make some Kuli Kuli. Well, that's how I think you pronounce it, I don't know. And it's essentially a peanut-based snack. But rather than just eating peanuts, we're going to turn them into a peanut-based snack. So for that, because I actually want some of these snacks for something else, not just for snacking them. So I've got 500 grams of peanuts. And I'm going to spread them out on this roasting tray. My oven is up at 180, or thereabouts. And now I'm going to put them in the oven for about 15 minutes. About halfway through, I'm going to give them a bit of a stir up. Okay, you can roast them in their shells, you know, like actually like what we used to call monkey nuts, you know, the peanut shells, but they will take longer. Okay, could take up to half hour. So we've just got them like that, and all else you're going to need, but we can worry about that a bit later, is a few spices and a blender. And perhaps a little, well, we will need some groundnut oil. If you haven't got groundnut oil, peanut oil, if you haven't got that, you can use just a plain vegetable oil. Don't use olive oil because it's got flavour to it. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to get roasting these. Like I said, about 15 minutes, or getting on for 20, in the oven, and I've now let them cool down completely. And so now what we're going to do is we want to blend them into like a paste. So I've got my little blend, and you can do this in the mortar and pestle if you want to make it the hard way. But we want to grind this up into like a paste. So I said to you, this was a peanut snack basically. And like I say, there are spices to go in it, but that's it. So obviously you don't know this if you've got a nut allergy. I might have to do it in 2 batches in here. I thought it was a bit of a loss doing it in the big processor. But I don't know, I'll see how it'll go. So this snack, I said to you, is essentially a Nigerian snack, but it's sort of West African. And it was often sold sort of on street corners, in car parks, that sort of thing. They traditionally made into a specific shape, but it depended where you sort of came from, what that shape was. It could be like sticks, it could be balls, it could be coils, snail shells. It really depended on what part of the country, if you like, where you came from. But not only is it used as a snack, these things are also dried and ground up and sometimes added to a salad. They're sometimes mixed in with cassava flour, sugar, water to make something called gari or gari. But it's also used in another ingredient, which is primarily why I'm making it, but I won't bother telling you about that one just yet. So, the heating has helped release some of the oils, okay. Actually, surprisingly, I thought when I started grinding this down, obviously it reduced the volume. If anything, it seems to have increased it, probably about there in there. It's starting to get a little bit sort of moist, but it's not unduly. We need a paste, but we don't want a really wet paste. Okay, I mean, if I pick this up, it sort of doesn't really stick together. We're going to be wanting this to stick together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit, and it will be a little bit of oil, and blend that in. And I'll have to do it in, like I said originally, 2 batches. We want this fairly dry, but we want it wet enough that we can obviously shape it. Okay, so I'm just going to get some oil in there and give that a bit of a blend. Now, although I've added a little bit of oil to it, and that's made it a little bit more like a paste, it's still quite a dry paste, but we actually want to get rid of some of the oils. Now, this stuff was originally probably made from about 1920s, as a product of making groundnut oil, where the whole point was to try and extract the oil from the nuts. And so you normally end up with more oil than you started with, but obviously with the small scale we're doing, you're barely going to notice it. So what I've done is I've tipped it into this cloth, and what we're going to do is squeeze out as much of the oil as possible. Now the more you can get out, so we still want it this paste. I mean, I'm not really sure at the moment whether this might need to be a bit moister, because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to form this very easy. So I might actually blend in a little bit more oil, but we'll see how we go. But the idea is, the drier it is, the crispier they are when we fry them. So I'm just going to get the remainder blended up, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about Kuli Kuli and what we're adding. Tipped the paste into this cloth. The idea being, we want to try and remove any excess oil. I probably needed a bigger cloth, to be honest, because it's trying to escape out of there. And I don't think, in all honesty, there's an awful lot. I did put some extra oil in that second batch, mainly because actually now, if you notice, it is now starting to come out. Oops, including that. See, that's very moist, and if I keep it that moist, although it'll be easy to shape, it's not really going to retain its shape, and it's also going to start, when we come to fry it, it's going to be quite soft. So I need to keep going until I've managed to get as much oil out of here as possible, and then I can tell you about the spices. Now, again, not only does the shape vary from the different parts of the sort of Western Africa, the flavourings that are going in it do. Now this one is primarily going to be ginger. We're going to have some ginger, some pepper, some chili powder. What was the other thing? Nutmeg. Some areas add salt. Some areas replace the salt with sugar. Just depends what you fancy. Transfer it to a bigger bowl, because obviously I now need to blend in my spices. So I've got half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, half a teaspoon of chili powder, half a teaspoonish of freshly ground black pepper, and half a teaspoon of ground ginger. And like I say, some of the flavourings do differ depending on which part of the country you're getting it from. So, like I said, this was a sort of a kind of snack that was an offshoot of producing the oil. However, this was very much women's work. It was considered a job for the women. That's everything from everything you've seen me do here, from sort of collecting the nuts to preparing them in the oven to roast them, grinding them up, mixing them, shaping them and cooking them. And it was very much a cultural thing that this was a woman's work, and therefore any money she made was her money. So she was free to spend this money however she wanted, since it had all been down to her. Now, one of the things I'm going to be using the cooked Kuli Kulis for actually then switches to basically to being a man's job and not a woman. But that's a completely different recipe. It's just it will be using this Kuli Kuli. So I'm going to get this, make sure this is all mixed in, and I might get my hands in there, give it a bit final mix before we start shaping it. So like I say, we're going to fry these. So I've got a saucepan here, and I'm going to put some groundnut oil or vegetable oil into there, We're going to heat that up, and then essentially we deep fry them. And I have to say, it don't look very appealing. It does remind me of dog poo. Okay, yeah, little turd. And like I say, you can roll these out thinner, and you can coil them up if you want. So we can roll it out and create a snail shell, or we can just make some round little balls. Really, it's up to you. I might make it out a bit small actually, because obviously we need to cook these. So I should get me oil on shortly. Like I said to you, these look like a nice little treat, often given to kids as a little snack or little treat. Teenage girls used to sell them at like car parks. They'd turn up at car parks, sell it, earn a little bit of cash. So we're going to want the oil up to about 340 Fahrenheit. Okay, I'm just going to carry on getting some more of these made, and then we'll fry them. A little tip for you, by the way. Well, just the oil was almost at temperature, but when I was rolling them, I was finding after a while they would just kept breaking up as I was rolling them, and it was as my hands were getting stickier, they were tending to sort of break up as I was trying to shape them. So I washed my hands a couple of times during the rolling, and freshly cleaned hands, it rolled nice and smooth. So that's just about 170, it's a fraction under. So what we're going to do is now we're just going to drop in some of our shaped Kuli Kulis, try and get them roughly the same size, and you're going to be wanting to fry them for about anything from 3 to about 6 minutes. We essentially want them to sort of harden up, okay, which I know is a little bit difficult to tell. And then what I'm going to do is oik them out, and we'll just put them on a rack. I've got some kitchen paper there which you can't see behind there, just to drain it, and we then let them cool completely before we eat them. They're you know, they're a cold snack if you like. We don't eat them hot from the fryer. So I'll just get cooking this batch off, and then once they've cooled we can have a little taste. So here we go, here's some of our final Kuli Kuli. I've got some that sort of failed, they fell apart a little bit, but also I've kept some that I basically have started to crush up because I'm using that for something else. But these are our finished Kuli Kuli. Now some of them have got a little bit overdone if you like. But let's have a little taste of this little bit here. It's peanut. Starting to get the chilli come through. Excuse me. But to be honest, other than that, I'd say it's just peanut with a bit of heat to it. I think you're getting a hint of the ginger. Not saying I'd necessarily go out of my way to eat these, well, as in, you know, like get them from anywhere else and eat them. But there you go. That apparently is your classic Nigerian Kuli Kuli.